Greetings. This is Troy Lamel Stovall, the CEO of TEDCO. Welcome to another edition of TEDCO Talks. You may be wondering why I'm wearing my Alpha gear today. I'll explain that in a minute. I'm very proud of my Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. We've been blessed to have a number of amazing guests who are in their own right honored and have done great things for the state, for the country, and for the planet. Today, I am honored to be able to speak to someone who I've known for years, who has been a mentor, is an author. We'll talk about his books here in a minute. But he knows he's my fraternity brother, double up. We're Alpha, we're Archons, and so I couldn't be more proud of what he's done. But he has recently announced his retirement, and so there is a moment to be able to reflect as well about the accomplishments and what he's done. And we've had, again, a lot of honored guests, but I will tell you, Freeman, we haven't had anybody that was the U.S. News and World Report best leaders and one of the top 100 most influential people in the world, brother. And so I am here to have a chance to talk to UMBC President, Doctor, and brother of mine, Freeman Hrabowski. Freeman, thank you for being on the show today.
Troy, I'm honored to be here and looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely.
And congratulations to you. I think the state of Maryland is, I know, very fortunate given your stellar academic and professional credentials. And I love that word map behind you. It speaks to you, but it speaks to TEDCO as visionary and as a leader in economic development.
Absolutely. We appreciate that. And it's a lot of places we could go. But I think I want to start with a little bit about, what your humble beginnings, being Alabama, being an Alabama boy, and, you were just, off camera talking about you had just gone to Indiana. So I think that's an interesting juxtaposition of where you came from,
yes,
where you just came from, and then how they all kind of connected. Tell folks a little bit about, and I'm gonna frame it a little bit differently for you, because I know you got a lot of passion. Your journey is an amazing one, but I'd like you to talk about what that journey from Alabama. There's always paths in the road, right? There's always forks in the road that have to be taken. And many times that fork sometimes will look left. And everybody says, Freeman, you should have gone left there, but you went right. You went right. And I want you to talk about why you chose right versus that left.
Sure. I have thought about this for years, and there's no doubt that the civil rights movement in America had a major impact on all of us, including my family and me. And I was very fortunate, honored to literally march with the children in the Children's March with Dr. King and to spend a week in jail. And that experience taught me that we can all help influence change our situation. And I was empowered by that experience to think about what leadership means when I was 12 years old. And that led me to want to work harder, to be my best, and to insist that we, the children, be considered by this country first-class citizens. And so the notion of empowerment, of working to be the best we could be, and of asking our country to give us that respect, those were all things that came out of that experience in Alabama, and my faith, and the emphasis on excellence, All of those things shaped who I am today.
Absolutely. And so let's have a little fun. So back to Alabama. I love our listeners tell your first job, your first paying job that you had.
Yeah, I began getting paid to tutor kids at a very young age. And it was to tutor both math and reading. My mother was a math teacher, English teacher, and a math teacher, and she was constantly experimenting with me to see how you connect word problems through math and reading. And that and my dad loved the math. So I became a tutor when I was in elementary school. And
so you had this seed. So you had this seed. I mean, a lot of we'll talk about UMBC. So you had this seed at an early age of giving back and helping those who didn't have everything that you had.
And that education makes the difference. And that's why I was in Indiana yesterday talking about the fact that Maryland is one of the best educated states in the country and has one of the highest, is actually the highest median income in the country. So and was juxtaposing that against other states. And it comes, though, from this education at every level, whether talking about at the elementary, pre-K level, through grad school, the fact that community colleges, when we focus on education, we produce people who can get good jobs and, quite frankly, who can help create jobs. Both.
Outstanding, outstanding. So back to your first car,
First car, I was in college and I had worked at, I went to college at Hampton in Virginia, but I was working in the summers, again, tutoring and then doing some research. But I worked in a company, New Jersey Bell, as a supervisor of telephone repair clerks. And what I learned that was most important, relationships. You could get people to work harder if you cared about them, gave them support. And I was making more money than I ever had imagined. And I was sending it to my parents just to get some sense of how you save and those kinds of things. And they surprised me and took the money and bought me a car for the before the beginning of my senior year in college.
Look at you.
I had been young too. You should know that. I had finished high school at 15. And I'd finished my math major at 18. So I was 18. They got me that car. I had one more senior year, and it was an Impala, if you know that.
Yeah, you going back on that one, dog.
Yeah, but a black and gold, a black vinyl top and gold. So it was a big deal, right?
Love that black and gold. And so, it's like I said, we're both fraternity brothers, but you and I have had such a, we both were STEM. You've been math and I've been engineering. We both worked at a Bell, the one we used to be called the R-Box, the regional Bell operating company. Used to call. So, but many of y'all listen don't even know what the heck we're talking about. The Baby Bells, R-Box, these companies are long gone, and so that we both aging ourselves, but why don't you spend a minute? I know many of our folks here in Maryland know about UMBC. Right. Our listeners may not know about the amazing institution that you've built there these last 30 years at UMBC.
Sure. It is my newest book that my colleagues and I wrote is entitled The Empowered University.
We're gonna talk about. I got it right here, bro.
And we start with the idea that it's not about me, it's about us, and we talk about the collective vision, what we've developed. I really want to thank the state for helping us build this. We've been in existence since 1966. It's an unusual place. We have very strong academic programs. It is a research university. Just got another big grant that we're announcing today from NASA for $72 million, working, and we're the lead, but delighted to be working with one of our HBCUs, Morgan State, and with Arizona State. But we're very proud of that, and that's from NASA. But the key is that we are the leading producer of students of color, African Americans, who get PhDs in natural sciences and engineering, bachelors from us and other places. Most important, though, we focus on particular areas of science, engineering, policy, human services at the doctoral level, strong liberal arts core at the undergrad level, a place for very serious students, considered in the top 10 for both quality of undergrad education and teaching and innovation. We're number 6 in the country for innovation as measured by all the presidents in the country. So we're doing things that others are trying to figure out, particularly how do you help more students to succeed in general, and how do you help them to succeed in science and engineering? And so think about us in both things.
Well, again, I'm gonna lead the jury like me. I appreciate everything you're saying, but it's not just getting student success. It's people of color, women of color, and look, I'm an engineer. You and I both been in this game. Sure. Trying to get more people of color and women to be successful in STEM. And for those who don't know, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math is the STEM. Right. Mm-hmm. And you found a way to make that happen. And you've gone against the odds because the numbers, you know the numbers better than I do. The numbers still aren't great about us being there. But you've been able to produce a record number of folks who go into these disciplines. Talk to folks about that.
And we start with the larger context. We need more students of all races, first of all, doing it, because only about 5% of our degrees are in natural science, bachelors are in natural sciences and engineering, compared to twice that in Europe, compared to the big numbers in Asia. So to be competitive, we need more Americans of all types, women, people of color, and whites in general to do it. The situation is exacerbated when looking at people of color because the numbers are much smaller as they are for women in computer science. So we have focused on being what we call excellent inclusively in terms of bringing in students of all backgrounds from all over the world and educating them. But our sweet spot has been having more women excelling in the technology areas and science, and minorities, particularly African Americans, large Asian population here, people from all over the world. That's the thing that's amazing. American higher education is so good in the world. It attracts from all over the world. Our state is so good. We attract people from all over the world. And we have large numbers of students who are the first generation after immigration to be here. That's significant. Large numbers of our students have parents where one of the parents is from another country. And the other parent, for example, is in the military, because the Baltimore-Washington corridor is a place where a lot of people retire after the military or come here for the intelligence community or are involved in the diplomatic community. So people don't realize how international we are in this corridor, quite frankly, and how we have to take advantage of that strength. So UMBC does that. But most important, we focus on grit. We are called the House of Grit. The name of our dog, Chesapeake Bay Retriever, is True Grit. And when we beat UVA in 2018, and the whole world
number 16, number
that's
16.
First time ever beat number. Everybody was talking about the retriever, our retriever, and the fact that it was a Chesapeake Bay Retriever. This is the heart of Maryland, right? And we take great pride of being here in this corridor. And it's a university that the state can really be proud of, as it's proud of its universities in general, from the university system of Maryland to the independent colleges. I mean, I take great pride in saying Maryland has a rich system of higher education that attracts from all over the world.
A lot of places I want to go with that comment, but you said something at the beginning of this, and you talked about the competition. Because I think sometimes, I've been saying this in some of my talks, Freeman, is that we tend to think we're competing against other Eagles like California and Massachusetts. Right. I think we need to compare ourselves to them, but the competition, is China. The competition is Europe. And if Africa ever wakes up, it's going to be Africa when Africa wakes up.
Sure.
So I want to see how you felt about that kind of a statement.
Sure. I think it's really important for us to work as collaboratively with other countries as we can, but we have to remember we've got to protect our country. Yep. We are one of the leading producers of talent for the National Security Agency. We have over about 1,200 of our graduates are there in cyber and math and STEM areas. And the key is that we have found it really important to think about producing best-in-class talent for the world, because when you think about our national agencies, whether it is about defense or it's about healthcare, the only way we can solve the problems of humankind is to be the very best. Amen. I think you know that it's our graduate who produced the technology. It was in the Washington Post yesterday, led that team along with Dr. Graham, Dr. Kismekia Corbett, to produce the technology for the vaccines that we all have in our arms now. And so that gives you a sense of why these areas are so important, not just in protecting from other countries, but in dealing with public health issues of that kind. Very important.
And that look, the census just came out and it's showing this growing population that this is becoming a minority majority country. And so if we don't have the systems or places like UMBC that are truly dedicated to educating and getting more of them and more of us, more of these communities into these STEM areas, we are then competitively going to be disadvantaged as those folks come into the workforce.
That's exactly right. It's very important. So over half, almost 60% of our students are in those disciplines. The other part that we need to think about, though, is that the students in the humanities and social sciences have opportunities now to have connections to STEM.
Absolutely.
Data science is one that people are just learning about, but that's at the intersection of statistics and computing, but it's rooted in social science problems. You see, so psychologists and people in the sociology and other areas, public health, are going to be using this for big data. So it's not just that we're producing students who are in those majors, but large numbers of students who are in the humanities, social sciences, the arts, and imaging and digital arts and visualization. There are opportunities for people using technology, digital humanities throughout these areas.
Amen.
And then the final point is, because technology is so critical to what we do, we need to have people broadly educated with the ethical considerations. Because we're dealing with that now when we talk about who gets the vaccination, you see, what zip codes are not being vaccinated, how do we build trust among those people? So it's important to keep the STEM in mind, the STEM focus, in conjunction with what we do to broadly educate people in humanities, social sciences. We don't just want techies. We want big thinkers and critical thinking human beings who can say, how can I use this technology to solve the economic problems, the health problems, the educational problems of our society?
Well, bro, we can spin all down this one because I'm passionate about this too, and it's not just the healthcare part of it, but you know,
Yes.
we're facing it right now with Facebook. You know,
Yeah.
what's the difference of privacy
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
having abilities to get stuff done for me,
Yep.
and where's the
Yep.
line, and what
Sure.
role does technology play in
Sure.
providing me services versus the privacy that I should have as
Yeah.
well, and
Yeah.
freedom I should have as well.
No, absolutely. So critical thinking skills, especially because our young people and all of us are faced with so many options every day. When I was growing up in Birmingham, there were 3 TV stations. All right. There were 2 regular stations, and then there was the educational TV that your parents wanted you to watch and you didn't want to watch. So that was it. Now look at what our young people and all of us have as options. And the challenge is, how do you learn how to look at the big data, all these options, make some sense of them, draw some conclusions about themes, impact, and get beyond thinking either or. We tend to think in our society about, you take what's this TV station for news or that one. And the question is, how do we begin to use our critical thinking as we think about business decisions, social decisions, to get to that common ground where we can learn in the process? Right now, we're going through it with COVID. We know that the healthier people are, the more they can go out and buy things, the more they can be in their companies. So it's how you connect the two. It's not one thing or the other.
I love it, brother. And for y'all listening, and look, like my kids in particular, it wasn't just you had 3 channels. It was 3 channels over an antenna, which you had to go and stand up next to with some foil. And if you move too much,
yeah. And you might want to add on, until for the first part of my childhood, it was all in black and white. It was all in black and white.
Yeah, talk. You know, so y'all complaining. Let me be clear on the choices we grew up with. So you mentioned, you know, and I said that you're an author. So I want to, again, I love bragging on you. So you've been the author of a number of books: Beating the Odds, Raising Academically Successful African American Males, published in '98. Overcoming the Odds, Raising Academically Successful African American Young Women, that was in 2001. Holding Fast to Dreams, Empowering Youth from Civil Rights Crusade to STEM, that was in 15. And the one you mentioned, The Empowered University, Shared Leadership, Cultural Change, and Academic Success, which you've been kind enough to sign for me, and I appreciate that. I want to spend a minute, if I can. I'm actually intrigued by the subtitle here before I go into some quotes. Because you talked about the we of this, and leadership is about the we and not the you or the I, and I couldn't agree more. But I'm intrigued. Some people may or may not know, I've been in higher ed at a number of institutions, and the way I read your subtitle, Freeman, says is shared leadership, cultural change, and academic success, and I'm reading purposely in that order.
Yeah.
Is that how you meant it to be?
Yep, absolutely. That it's not about me, it's about us. I know that our governor would say this, the head of the University System of Maryland would say this, all of us say this, the heads of the different agencies, that we've got to have all of us in there on the same page, focused on moving in the same direction. And it doesn't happen with one person. And if one person gets ahead of everybody else, that person's there alone, as that proverb says, as opposed to having people buying into it. And I want to thank TEDCO. You didn't expect me to do this, for years, decades of supporting UMBC, University System of Maryland, and higher education. We would not have our research part with 120 plus companies, with women CEOs, minority CEOs, people from all kinds of backgrounds, if it were not for the investment you made in infrastructure years ago. And that Maryland Innovation Initiative has made such a difference. We have over 20 some companies started because of that, and that's over $6 million. So I mean, we shouldn't take those things for granted. And I know you didn't expect me to say that, but I have to say that because you are part of the leadership in the state in creating an ecosystem that supports starting companies, creating jobs, filling those jobs, building the infrastructure. And we are like the poster child for that, a young campus that 30 years ago, people would have said, there's no way they'll have companies right there on the campus, biotech and cyber companies. But you all believed in us and worked with others to get us to this point. And now people take it for granted. But I remember when we were going through protests with people not wanting companies in this area. Now we work very closely with our neighbors and others, and they're wonderful, but they see the advantage of continuing to create new companies. And probably the most important thing I can say about culture change about the university or about the state of Maryland or General Society is that it's what Eric Weiner calls, it's culture is the sea we swim in, so all consuming that we don't even recognize it until we step out of it and look back at it. And that's what we are challenging people to do, not just in universities, but in a state like Maryland, to be empowered to step out of ourselves and look back. Where are we? What progress have we made? How much more do we need to make? And how do we get there? And that's the book, but it's the point I'm making about the fact we've made a lot of progress. We have more companies now, more people employed, and we want to take it to the next level. We want to use all the national agencies in this area. We want to build the university so they're thinking not just about the basic research, which is important, but tech commercialization. We want to make sure the infrastructure in those institutions is such that they can encourage faculty to do more in creating these companies. And then we want to highlight success.
Amen.
Very important to highlight success. It's because of TEDCO and all that infrastructure that companies like Fearless Solutions, Delilah Zarasa, wonderful, was in there, comes through UMBC, gets a degree in engineering, starts this company on our campus, now one of the biggest in Baltimore with hundreds of millions of dollars. It's unbelievable. And we need just more examples just like that.
No, you're right. He's an outstanding example, and just to pay the compliment. Hey, thank you for the compliment. But I think what UMBC and the success of UMBC shows is that, to be frank, you don't have to be the biggest in order to be successful.
Right.
For those that don't know, this Maryland Innovation Initiative that Dr. Hrabowski is talking about is with the 5 research institutions here in Maryland. And just to be blunt, there are a couple of others that are much bigger than UMBC is. But UMBC steps into the ring, if you will, with them and competes very successfully against some of these very major institutions that are here in Maryland and does so very well. And I had the honor to visit his campus about a month or so ago, and just some of the technology that is there that I got the chance to see. And it's not just technology, but the people. I got a chance to meet some great people who represent the globe, as he talked about. And I just walked away with even more being more impressive of what you guys are doing there at UMBC.
And I want to give a shout out to all of my colleagues, the presidents of the other campuses, whether it's Daryl at College Park, Bruce at UMB, Ron at Hopkins, David at Morgan, for example. Let me just say, we now have grants with all these institutions from national agencies working to not only build the research, but build the workforce in the STEM areas. And so I think, and it was the late Jim Brady, who recently died, who was saying, do you get it? You got to work together. Yeah. And if you talk to our folks now and these colleagues at the public and private institutions and in our system, you'll see much more collaboration than ever before. And then I give the governor credit, his initiative with us in computing, Maryland Initiative in Innovative Computing, another great example of working with state agencies to make a difference in how we go about reaching certain goals. It's the building of synergy. This is what the culture has to be. It's not a matter of everybody keeping to themselves and what they do. It's what NSA says now about the need to share, not just the need to know, a need to share. And it's been the sharing which has had our faculty from these different campuses of all types working together to make a difference.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I pulled a number of quotes. I won't go through all that I pulled from you. Again, this is from the Empowered University, and this is in chapter 3. And the title of chapter 3 for our audience, and again, I would encourage you all, if you don't have the book, to get it, that the title is Culture Change is Hard as Hell. That's the title of chapter 3. And Dr. Hrabowski is describing an audience he had with a number of other university presidents. And now I'm about to quote. He says, let me start, and this is him talking, let me start by saying something every president in the room will appreciate. I have been serving as president for more than 20 years. If there's one undeniable truth, is that changing the culture of an institution is hard as hell. It just is. The audience erupted with laughter and applause. And I'm skipping down. My task on this panel was not to give the presidents an out, but rather the opposite. My job was to pull them into the work of implementing change and encouraging innovation.
Yes.
The job we have as presidents is to convince people that the world of tomorrow can be better than the world of today. However uncomfortable they may feel at present, and however comfortable they feel about change, it's our obligation to address the evolving role of our institution, society, and helps. What I'm impressed by that statement, and I love it, obviously like your comment, is that, again, I've been at a number of institutions, at the different levels, and to me, the job of an institution is to prepare that student for tomorrow. Is to give them the gifts, the grit, and the motivation to explore the possibilities of the possibilities, right? But too many times, and what you're talking about is, as institutions, we've grinded to ourselves that we get caught in our day to day, and we forget about not just that mission, but the notion of the innovation that we're supposed to be imparting into our students.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. And you're innovative in the sense that you want to come across, even with the cap and everything, as the everyday person. People don't know that you are an alum of Southern Methodist University and Harvard and Stanford. You play that down. I don't, because I know how unusual it was for a young Black boy to be at Southern Methodist University and get a degree in engineering and then a master's and then an MBA. So I'm proud of you. I just put it out there and let people know he is from the height of academic credentials. So I start there, but you have smart enough, wise enough not to want to come across as either pretentious or coming out of New England and California. You are here in Maryland making a difference. I start there. Now, here's what I would say. First of all, when you were reading that, I was thinking, that sounds really good. And then I realized it's what I said. People always think what they said sounds good. But the fact is that we do weed out so many students in STEM. I chaired the National Academy's Committee on Underrepresentation, and people would be shocked to know that 2/3 of all Americans of all races who start with a major in science and engineering leave it within the first year or two. In fact, we call the first year of science weed out courses. I mean, that's across the nation. And so of all races. And so the issue is that we need more people competitively trained in these disciplines. And now here's the point. We have found ways of, not just through the Mauhoff program, but through other initiatives on this campus, the Center for Women in IT, to help nurture students. So if they want to major in computer science or in computer engineering or in biochemistry, we can help them to do that. And the point I make in my TED Talk is that it's about high expectations, but it's not just the high expectations of the students, it's high expectations of us. What is it we do? If I put I'm a mathematician, I get goosebumps doing math, very seriously, whether I'm working with third grade kids or working with grad students. But here's the point. If I put a problem on the board from differential equations and I finish it and I'm eloquent and everybody says, wow, he's really smart. And then I give you a test, give the group a test on it, and nobody passes the test. Have I taught that concept? We tend to think if you put it on the board and you give a test, they don't get it. I taught it, they didn't learn it. No, you only can confirm that you taught it if people have grasped the concept. And we spend, and more campuses are doing this, but we spend a lot of time through collaboration, through group work, through use of technology, through a lot of feedback in our Chemistry Discovery Center and Digital Humanities, working to innovate in the use of technology in the teaching and learning process. That's changing the culture. And it's not, the old-fashioned way of thinking is, if most people don't make it, it must be a really good university. They're so hard, nobody can make it. That's not, no. The newer way of thinking is, yes, there are very high standards of rigor in the work, but also high standards for giving support to people so they can make it. And the same thing is true when thinking about entrepreneurship. We've had big grants from Kellogg and other places in, not Kellogg, but from others all the way out on the West Coast in entrepreneurship. And what's interesting is that most of the time we have been working to ensure that people know failure is not the worst thing.
Amen.
It's not trying, as Benjamin Mays said. It's not having high aim, right? That resilience and grit. You try it. If it doesn't work, you learn from that and you get back up. That's the change in culture that we've worked on our campus, and we would hope that others would do the same thing.
Boy, we didn't even touch. So I know we're gonna run out of time, but I'm on chapter 9.
Yeah,
and it's a challenge of quality. And just before I read this, I think too many times people think teaching and learning are the same thing.
Right.
But the point being is there's different ways to teach and there's different ways to learn. And I look at my 2 kids, they learn fundamentally differently. But we made the assumption there's only one way to learn, so there's only one way to teach. And
right.
That's where the disconnect happens in too many of our academic institutions.
That's exactly right. And if you look at our pivot program, as we've had to deal with and address online learning, it's not just getting up and lecturing to people.
Yep.
We have spent a lot of time on professional development to look at different ways of engaging the students, as we are doing right now, of their working with each other, for example, of giving them more feedback all the time. This is the period when we should be learning from the challenges of the last 2 years of COVID and not go back to things just as they were, because as they were, 2/3 of Americans were getting pushed out of science and engineering.
Bro, I say all the time, if we keep talking about going back to normal, I say, let's be clear. As a Black man in America, I don't want to go back to that. If that's normal, I don't want to go back to that. There's so much that was not right. And if we can't understand that there's a new way to do things, whether it's in education or economics or entrepreneurship, then we have missed the last 2 years. But real quick here. So this is chapter 9. It's a challenge of quality. And you're talking about the commission that was the American Academy of Science was doing a commission on the future of undergraduate education. So, quote, the commission focused on the central fact that, quote, only 60% of students who begin a bachelor's degree actually complete one. And challenged us to do much better. The other 40% often end up with no degree, yet accumulate significant debt that they are then hard pressed to repay without the benefit of a college degree. These outcomes are unacceptable. The analogy I use, Freeman, is if there was an airline that airline left DC with 100 passengers and flew directly to New York, didn't stop anywhere, but only 60 people got off that plane. What happened to the other 40? It's a great
metaphor.
And by the way, on that plane, everybody paid a different price. On that airplane. The question is, do you ever fly the airline again? That is higher ed. Higher ed is that airline.
And the challenge is that, as a mathematician, that 60% and it's high 50s or whatever is not reflective of the real deal. The real deal is, if you are very wealthy and you go to a very wealthy institution, the graduation rate is going to be 95% and more. All right. If you are not in that category, then the less money you have, the fact is, the lower the graduation rate will be. So for the majority of middle class and working class Americans, the graduation rate is well below 40%. So,
and I want people to hear what you said, because you didn't say Black, you didn't say white.
Every race.
Exactly.
Every race.
And I think too many times we allow this to become a racial conversation.
It's more than
socioeconomic conversation.
I mean, the fact is that there's a greater proportion of people of color who are poor, but the largest number of poor people and low-income people are white. Right? We've got to be concerned about them. And what I'm saying is, you go to some parts of the country and the university may be completely or almost totally white, and the graduation rate is below 35%.
There you go.
And that's a 6-year graduation rate for publics. So no, we can do a much better job, just as we have to work on pre-K through 12. And we're doing a lot to work on pre-K through 12. Look at our Lakeland Elementary consortium of schools with the Sherman Scholars Program, which is really focused on preparing more teachers of all races who will work in challenging schools to help kids with mathematics and reading, particularly middle school, but pre-K through middle school levels. Another example.
Bro, we could go on and on and on. I know we could. You and I, because whenever I just have my one-on-ones, I learn a lot. You obviously announced recently you're going to be stepping down and retiring from UMBC. I think, I won't be clear. You're retiring from UMBC, but you ain't retiring from life and doing.
That's exactly right.
So we'll tell little folks a little bit about what you plan on doing.
Sure. I already teach some at Harvard with new presidents and provosts, and others have been doing that for years. They have case studies on UMBC that they use with leaders, public and private universities. But I've been invited to do more of that. I will do more of that. But I'm also working with boards and leadership teams at other institutions using this book and the new one that we're writing right now, but public and private, from Wellesley and wonderful Paula Johnson, who's a mentee, president of Wellesley, to just spending time with Penn State as an example, to being very proud and knowing they're using the book down at Clemson, UMBC's alumnus, Jim Clements, all 3 degrees from UMBC, 1 from Hopkins, but 3 from UMBC at Clemson University, and then to institutions in Atlanta, working with Spelman and Morehouse and others. So all types of universities. I'll be spending my time giving support to leaders and working to build America in different ways, and spreading the good news about Maryland and about UMBC.
If folks hadn't caught the element, one of the key elements that Freeman brings to leadership is, and people call it coaching, but I call it, because we both of us are faith, it's pouring his cup into somebody else's cup. And you've built trees and branches, and you've helped grow other trees and branches of other trees, because I know someone poured into you and helped build your tree. So and I'm one of those branches off of your tree. And so thank you for continuing to grow branches off of your tree, brother.
And thank TEDCO and our state for continuing to nurture the plants, the people in this state. It makes a big difference. We're on our way. We are seen as one of the leaders, and it's because of institutions like TEDCO. Thank you very much, Troy.
I appreciate you. And again, I appreciate you, my brother. So again, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your service to the state, and thank you for being who you are. So to our listeners, I hope you guys come out of this. Again, check out the book, The Empowered University. Please do. And again, Freeman, thank you for your time today and for your service. For all of you listening, we continue to get great feedback on TEDCO Talks. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for providing us feedback. And again, this is Troy Lamel Stovall, CEO of TEDCO. We'll see you next time. Everybody be safe. Thank you.
Keep hope alive.